Hey, what's going on, football fans? We've got another episode here of the Swampy Coliseum podcast. That's Nathaniel. I'm Andrew. Man, what a week it was.
Yeah, this was a crazy week of college football. The
We
day of the dogs.
we came in saying this is kind of trash games happening.
Yeah.
There's not much going on here, but really some interesting results that I'm glad to talk about today for sure. But we'll start it off with USC. How about your Trojans after last week?
Oh man. And a 48-0 win. The story of the game has to be defense. This was USC's first shutout since 2011, where a Lane Kiffin
Wow.
coach team beat UCLA 50-0. First year
Oof.
where the NCAA sanctions, which outrageous and unfair if you ask me, were in effect. And like as a kid, that kind of felt like those were the last years of the golden era that Pete Carroll started. But with another shutout, is this now a beginning of another
The
golden era? I
beginning.
don't know. Am I
Yes.
am I getting ahead of myself? Probably, but I mean, you already see the ripple effect starting to occur. One of the top
Mhm.
high school linebackers, Ty Jackson, committed right after the game. And his top three going into that visit was FSU, Florida, and Alabama. And I think Danson Lynn has just changed his defense and changed the entire culture. Guys like Eric Gentry and Mason Cobb are saying it's fun to play football again, which is
Mm.
kind of a crazy statement to make. Yeah, and the only time we really saw Danton Lynn show emotion was when the freshmen were able to keep the shutout intact after Utah State missed a 52-yard field goal. And that was just one of two drives that Utah State had in USC territory. I think just the scheme of the linebackers being able to attack instead of being on their heels, guys like Kamari Ramsey and Jalen Smith are just dominating in the secondary, making big hits, just roaming back there. I've had a couple transfers, and our big guys are doing well, like Nate Clifton and Gavin Meyer. And looking at the stats, Utah State only had 190 yards all game. And the
Mm.
pig farmer, the self heralded Trojan killer, Bryson Barnes, who was just talking all type of smack going into the game. He had a QBR of 9.5 with
Wow.
103 yards and an interception, and he played the entire game with half the game against freshmen. Yeah, it was amazing performance on defense. And talking offensively, I guess last but not least, we ran a very simple vanilla game plan, just ran it down their throats. A lot of two tight end sets, had 253 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns with both Quentin Joyner and Woody Marks just having amazing games. The only really concern was there's a few big drops by the receiving core, and
Mm.
the only time we didn't score with the starters was a fumble by our tight end. But I'm confident they'll get refocused by the Michigan game. Next week's a bye week, so we have pretty much 2 weeks to prep for a Michigan team that isn't looking too good this year.
Absolutely, yeah. Big win, easy win. I think that's always what we
Yeah.
hope for
Oh yeah.
USC.
Yeah. Clay Helton teams, that would probably be a 35 to 21 barn burner or something like that.
Unfortunately to say, yes. But similar story for the Gators, right? Playing against Samford, 45-7 victory. But if you caught my instant reaction, this was all about DJ Lagway. He came in for Graham Mertz last week. Mertz got a concussion, so he was out for last week, and DJ Lagway put on a show. Look at these stats here. 18 for 25, 456 yards. I saw he had four plus throws, I believe, over 40 yards. He had three touchdowns, no interceptions. Just he had showed a little running ability to get around and escape in the pocket. So many things to where the answer has to be we're going with Lagway. We're,
Yeah.
we're Mertz, you've done good. Mertz, be here, support him, help him. But after the way we looked against Miami, and now seeing what Lagway is and can be, you've got to give him the keys, or else what are we doing? We're just letting our rudders turn without moving anywhere. So Lagway's got to be the quarterback. I And that doesn't mean we're going to turn around the season. That doesn't mean we're going to go 8-4 now and everything's looking up. No, we can still have a bad year, but for our hopes in the future, we got to give him the ball so he can get ready and progress and win for the future. There were some things in the game that were still lackluster. I mean, our defense making some dumb mistakes, dumb penalties, coaching decisions. I mentioned we at Florida we have the tradition of after the third quarter we sing "We Are the Boys." The fans sway back and forth, and we sing this song called "We Are the Boys," and then they play Tom Petty, "Won't Back Down," and it's just this awesome atmosphere going on, and we head that straight into the fourth quarter. Well, coming into the fourth quarter, we were on offense after whatever 6-7 minutes of a break, and the Gators call a timeout coming out of the third quarter. They had just had 5 minutes to discuss and plan what they were gonna do, and they weren't prepared and had to call a timeout. It's just dumb things like that that get Gator fans upset and worried about Billy saying, like, these are the same dumb mistakes, the same like little errors we've been making for 3 years now. Can we get those cleaned up? So it basically DJ Lagway is the only hope for Billy Napier. If we lose Billy Napier and DJ says, "All right, I'm out. I'm going somewhere else," then that would be awful for Gator fans. So I think Billy's only hope is to put DJ in there to say, "Hey, he's staying, I'm staying," and try to dig his heels in. But all that to say, really good, solid win for the Gators. Put up 45 points on Samford. The defense did play strong and only give up 7 points, and it was at the end of the game anyway. So good. And now we're heading into Texas A&M this week, which thankfully they're playing in Gainesville, but tough matchup. We've seen them play Notre Dame already this season, and I don't know what to expect for Florida in these next games. So we'll be interested to see, but good to come off that win for sure.
Yeah,
But
definitely a little hope with Weigman coming into town. So maybe it won't be a shootout or a defensive battle. He might be able to take that one.
and the way Gator fans are, most fans, if we go into next week and we win, they're going to be saying 9-3, we're going to the playoffs. So we got to slow the roll a little bit, but it would be very encouraging if we could get another win next week. But let's keep talking about this week for now. We had some really good matchups, as it turned out, to watch over the week. What were some of the biggest games that stood out to you?
I think the biggest game that stood to me was that Michigan Texas game. I think you have the reigning national champion, and all the talk is that they're not going to step off. Sharon Moore still led them to wins over Ohio State and, all these big teams. And, there's no step off. They're still going to be physical. They're still going to be strong. But they were at home against Texas and they just got boat raced. You can really tell that there's a lack of QB talent. I think it's pretty common in, college football spaces to say JJ McCarthy was a system quarterback, game manager. He didn't really, do anything for that offense. But I think this really showed they need a quarterback. This looked like, the Michigan days where they had like Jake Rudolph or, Cade McNamara, where they don't have a great QB. Like they have a great team still. But I think the real story was Texas just they built a great team. They're tough as nailed and they beat Michigan at their own game. Yeah. And it's kind of sad to see Michigan where they have all the pieces necessary, but that offense is probably going to keep holding them back the rest of the year. And it's just like I just keep seeing these memes from that one scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Bane tells his henchman, he's like, "Stay in a crashing plane." He's like, "They expect one of us to be in the wreckage, brother." But it's like Harbaugh,
Mm.
talking to Sharon Moore, where I mean, he's been dealt a rough hand, and unless Alex Orji kind of figures it out, I don't think they're really getting back on track.
Yeah, they're gonna have to make changes for sure. And this just solidified how strong Texas looks
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. They came out dominating. They seemed really strong on defense. Their offensive playmakers, along with Quinn Ewers, certainly good enough to be up there with the top teams in the country, as we've expected. But there were a lot of questions. I mean, I'm watching all of the pick'em shows and hearing different things, and they're saying, given, you know, seven, however many points it was, given 7 points to Michigan at home, like that's way too much. Oh, I'm picking Michigan on the points here, but
Yeah.
wow, they didn't stand a chance
No.
against Texas. So as the season continues with this SEC schedule, it just makes the SEC schedule even more fun to watch, along with
Hmm.
Tennessee as well, right? We
Oh yeah.
saw Tennessee come out. They were one of the premier games, just two ranked teams as they played against North Carolina State, and they destroyed them. I mean,
Yeah.
the offense and the defense as well at Tennessee just look fantastic. We talked a little about their quarterback, Nico. He looks good again. He didn't have his best game, but they put up tons of points. Their defense, it just looked easy. It looked like they were playing a smaller school,
Yeah.
not an ACC school that's ranked in the top 25. So really, really looking forward to seeing how the SEC continues and the bigger games that'll happen later on this year. For it, a game that really stood out to me, I was able to watch the end of it, was Oklahoma State, Arkansas. You had texted me saying, Arkansas? Is Arkansas about to win this thing? And so I was able to tune in for the end of the fourth quarter and then the overtime. The, of course, Oklahoma State ended up winning 39-31 in double overtime. But I was shocked by how dumb the coaching decisions were and just the things that were going on at the end of this game. You had coming towards the end, Oklahoma State had taken the lead 28-21 with 5 minutes left in the game. Then Arkansas went quick, tied it up 28-28. Oklahoma State came back down, made a field goal. Arkansas made a field goal. And in this end sequence, there were some just the penalties that were being called, the arguments from the coaches. I mean, it was like Mike Gundy was just yelling at the referees at things I don't think they were doing anything wrong. He
Yeah.
just kept yelling at them for what was happening. And we're like, Mike, we think like everything's good. Stop
Yeah.
yelling and arguing. They were confused. He was confused about the clock and should it be started or stopped. The clock was running, but then there was an offensive false start, and so they stopped the clock. But Gundy's, what are you doing? The clock is stopped. Yeah, dude, that's what happened. So then we go into overtime, and there was a field goal attempt by Arkansas, and they miss it. And so Oklahoma State goes out there. All right, here we go. Just gotta get ourselves in field goal range,
Yeah.
right?
Just line it up.
Just we'll be good. A thing that gets to me so much is that they just act like this 43, 45 yarder is a gimme. We don't need to try and get any yards. We're fine. And they end up like losing 2 yards total. They missed the field goal. And it's everything just seemed lined up. And I just didn't understand. Then Oklahoma State was able to score a touchdown in their second overtime, and Arkansas wasn't able to match. But I was just watching the end of these games, and I think about college coaches, especially. They seem to have these kind of a person who talks to them about what do we do in this situation?
Yeah.
Remind me what's the time? How many timeouts do we have? What are the bet? And it just seems like these people are idiots. And of course, I'm a college football fan just watching from thousands of miles away. But just thinking about being in the coach's ear right now and whispering something that could be helpful. There were other times when, Oh yeah, a big thing at the end of regulation was not spiking the ball. I don't understand when the clock is going and you get a first down, there's 25 seconds left. Why are you going to run up there, call a play, take 10 seconds before you even get the play off, and then throw an incomplete pass? You're just, I don't understand the epidemic of coaches not spiking the ball. You're saving yourself a ton of time,
Yeah.
and you actually have a chance to call a play so that you're prepared to get more yards than if you're just running up there and starting something. I don't know if you have similar thoughts on the spiking, not spiking, but that just gets to me.
Yeah, I think I mean obviously if you're playing like a video game, you don't spike it. You can just press an audible, everyone knows the play. But like you're saying, it's you have to look, you have to make sure. And now with the more reliance on kind of just the headphones in the ear, where it's like, all right, now the quarterback is like explaining stuff where it's like, all right, you're slowing down offenses. So why are you? Yeah. And it's already four down territory. It's not like, oh, we're wasting a down. It's like, all right, you still got three downs. You probably only have 4 or 5 plays anyways. So yeah, some of these teams I feel like could benefit from just kind of the NFL's like jump into analytics. But I mean,
Right.
that's why you love college football. It's old fashioned. They play they play different than the NFL, and it's very, all about tradition, all about culture, and you have to take some of the boneheaded coaching mistakes with it.
It's true. I hold my gunny to a higher standard. Just he's
Yeah,
been there so long. He's over
yeah.
40. I know that. He,
It might be
because
older than that.
he said 20 years ago, I'm a man, I'm 40, so he's probably getting close to 60 now. But yeah,
Yeah,
you just have to live with that. Just dumb decisions and I mean they're always gonna happen. But
yeah.
were there any other games that stood out to you from this week?
Yeah, I think we've got to talk about the big game of the week, upset of probably the year. Notre Dame
Yes.
losing one to their in-state rival, Northern
Oh,
Illinois.
yeah, not the in-state rival you were thinking maybe.
Yeah, it's funny. I work with a couple guys from Chicago, and they're all going for NIU. Like you'd think, they're a bunch of like Notre Dame fans, but being straight from Chicago, they're all rooting for Northern Illinois. They said, oh, they want it for the city. And this upset didn't feel like, like a typical upset where, the bigger team, they got more yards, they dominated, but there was like one stat where it's like, oh, they had 3 or 4 interceptions, or they couldn't convert on third down, stuff like that, where you're like, okay, I can kind of see how, the bigger team lost, but NIU just dominated. They had more yards. I think it was like 400 to 200 or something like that. And it wasn't like they pulled a fast one. It wasn't like, an Appalachian Michigan vibe where they just surprised them with speed. But NIU kind of pushed Notre Dame around when Notre Dame needed yards and they tried running the ball, they got stuffed consistently. And I think that was a convincing win for NIU. And I think that's why they're in the top 25. I think Notre Dame has a real problem at quarterback. I said last week that they got to hope, they got to pray that Riley Leonard is a better passer, and that's how the only way they can be a serious contender. And I think that game he just showed that he's just not that type of in the pocket precision guy. They're gonna have to figure out either a different offensive scheme or maybe they move on from him at quarterback because he had a lot of throws yesterday where you're sitting there like you have to hit these easy 5-10 yard outs just whiffing them. And it gives you shades of DJU where it's like
Mm.
maybe this transfer quarterback like thing isn't exactly what you need. And I think it's wild going from Riley Leonard at Duke, where he's willing this team to win. But if you really think back to it, because I'm like, did he look this bad last year? Then you kind of
Mm.
watch those games at Duke, and it's short passes or just very scripted passes, but he is running the ball. Like he's a big running guy. Like he'll just put his shoulder down and just knock people down. Kind of like a little Tim Tebow esque, a Walmart Tim Tebow. Um, but yeah, I mean, Notre Dame. I think they had like FPI said they had the easiest strength to schedule the rest of the way. But now I think they have to win out if they even want a shot at the playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll protect us here for a second. We'll remember that Notre Dame is in South Bend, Indiana, Northern Illinois. We're
Oh,
talking
you're right. You're right.
neighbors.
You're right.
We're talking
You're close.
neighbor
You're close.
states. We
They
both
start
said
with
it, and
I. It's the same
I
thing.
was like, wait a second, I need to think about this. So yeah, we're good. They're
You're
neighbors
right. You're right.
to the east and west. But man, what an upset. Fun to watch. I gotta say, when it's not your team, it's kind of fun to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
I,
I
I,
think I
I
said this like week one, like when chaos happens and it's not your own team, like I live for those
mm,
moments.
awesome. I will say on a sad note, I turned on the Gators were playing in the 4 o'clock hour here in West Coast time. Turned on the ESPN app on the TV, went to find our game, and there's a ton of games listed there to watch. The Florida Samford game, they have the biggest games on first, the ones with the
Yeah.
marquee teams you want to watch. The Gators were 32nd in line as the game to watch. Here are some games before them: Maine versus Montana State, West Georgia versus Abilene Christian, Portland State versus Weber State. And I don't think Dame Lillard was back playing at all for the football team. So, yikes. 30. I'm just scrolling through and I said, I got to count this. This is terrible. So, Florida's worked their way all the way down to where they're 32nd in the list of games that ESPN wants to put out there. But anyway, beyond that, we're here to start a new segment. We're
Oh
starting a
yeah.
new segment on the Swampy Coliseum podcast. We're doing weekly trivia. And so every week we're going to go back and forth on who asks who the question. So I've got a question today for Nathaniel. You all can listen along after I ask the question. You can pause it if you want, think of the answer for yourself. Nathaniel will kind of think out loud. He'll give his answers and we'll talk through it. But I've got our trivia question
Oh
for
gosh.
today. You ready?
I don't know if I am, but
All right, here we go. We'll do it. So, Jaden Daniels and your boy Caleb Williams won the last two Heisman trophies,
yeah.
but neither of them were able to win the national championship.
Hmm.
Can you name the six players in this century to
Oh
win the
gosh.
Heisman Trophy and the national championship in the same year?
All right. Off rip, USC. Matt Leinart won the Heisman Trophy 2004. I
There you
don't
go.
know if you're counting that because technically the NCAA and all that dumb
No, I'm
stuff would
counting it. I'm counting
not.
it.
I bet. Oh man. Okay. Can't be any of the. Ooh, I was thinking none of the Alabama teams. Yeah, Tua never won it. Oh gosh. Then you're like sorting through. Johnny Manziel never did. You got to go Gators with Tim Tebow.
All right, is
Or
that
did he? Yeah, yeah. Did he not win it the same year?
it's incorrect. Tebow
Oh,
went Tebow went championship freshman year, Heisman sophomore year, championship junior year.
jeez. That's brutal.
Okay.
How
We
does
got
that even happen? Okay. Five more
there's five more. Five more. Here we go.
in this century. So like starting 2000?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how centuries work. Oh, jeez.
I
Okay.
could say
Cam
in this
Newton.
millennium. Cam
He could. Cam Newton, he won Heisman and national championship.
Newton
Um,
2010.
gosh, I'm like just trying to like scroll through because you got guys like RG3, Lamar Jackson, they didn't even sniff it. Johnny Manziel
Mm-hmm.
never sniffed the championship. Joe Burrow, come on,
Joe Burrow, 2019,
dog,
LSU.
absolute dog. Um, who won it 2020? It was Devontae Smith, right? He won the
Mm-hmm.
Heisman in 2020. That's so crazy to me. Um, and we had a bunch of Oklahoma guys. 2021. Who won it then? All right, what, three down, three to go? Can you give me
Three down,
like,
three to go.
all right, can you give me years? I don't think I remember any
Yeah,
of
let's see.
the.
Let's go. Interesting. Oh
Oh,
no,
wait,
that's
wait,
too much.
wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Jameis Winston, didn't he won slash no, he never won one, huh? Never won a national, I mean a Heisman, huh?
Jameis Winston is the answer. Is an
Oh, yeah,
answer.
then there we go. Okay, two left.
Yeah,
Okay.
2013, his
When he
freshman year.
lost, yeah.
Crazy as a I believe redshirt freshman. Heisman Trophy and national championship in the same year. There's seven, and I don't even know. I looked through this, and I don't even know how I missed that. I was thinking about him when I put this on, but okay. Now we're looking for '09.
Oh nine.
I'll start the farthest back and go
Oh
forward.
nine.
Actually, probably first I should say you've already named a correct answer and haven't said it to me.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I've like thrown out 8 million names. Oh nine. Who won the national championship in oh nine? That was like the years where obviously I was still a kid. We were young guys.
Sure.
That was like USC was like, once USC didn't win, and it was like all the Alabama, LSU stuff.
I'll say this: we've got no quarterbacks left on the list.
Oh my gosh. You didn't say quarterbacks, huh? It was
Nope.
just, oh, so Devontae Smith. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. 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 I was in my head, I'm like, all right, quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure I named almost all the quarterbacks
Yeah.
that won. Okay. And we got what, like Derrick Henry? Didn't he win
Derrick
one same
Henry,
year? Yeah. All
2015.
right.
Yep.
What's the last one? Oh, gosh. Okay. Devontae Smith, Derrick Henry. And what, like Mark Ingram?
Mark Ingram, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I thought it was just QBs. There we go.
I was laughing. I was thinking, yeah, he's passed through some. He's only naming quarterbacks right now, but seven, yeah. Actually, there we go. Seven guys in the last uh 20 years, really going back to '04, who have won the Heisman and the national championship in the same year. That's one in every three. That's pretty crazy,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Then going back a little farther, 97, you had Charles Woodson as Michigan and Nebraska shared a championship. 96, we got my guy, Danny Warfel. And then 93, Charlie Ward, going back a little farther in the list. I think I saw it's maybe 15 guys total have done it in history. So interesting. Okay, that's our first time doing a new segment. We're feeling it out.
Okay.
We've got our college football trivia. We'll come back next week. Nathaniel will have a question for me, but you can always play along with us and enjoy that as well. We have a chance to look at our top 25 again this week and see some risers and fallers. So, coming off the week that was, a lot of questions of who performed well, who performed poorly. We're going to start with our biggest risers. And for me, it's going to be a team who we've already talked about some today. That's going to be Tennessee. Tennessee really jumped their way into the won the SEC championship conversation, but even the national championship conversation. They've already been talked about as potentially a playoff team, but with, look at the SEC itself. You've got Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri. Tennessee is just named right now on the list with more and more to come. Like, there are so many SEC teams vying for a place in the college football playoff and trying to get to that SEC championship game. With the way their team looks offensively and defensively, I'm excited to see them play against the SEC schedule, but they're just shooting up the boards. Nico was totally just talk before this year. We didn't know exactly what he was going to be, but everyone's been talking him up as this great quarterback. It's coming true. He is a stud out there. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this year seeing Tennessee, but they're going to be my biggest riser for this week. What about you?
There's a lot of options. You can throw out there a little Northern Illinois. and Nebraska. I think Nebraska definitely deserves their flowers for kind of shutting down the Dion treatment early. But I'm going to go with the team that we tend to put down, that we tend to make fun
Mm.
of. And this team is the Clemson Tigers. I
Mm.
think after that Georgia game, it was Clemson's dead. I think I even mentioned that they probably have no shot at the ACC championship. I don't know if I really said that, but that was kind of what I was feeling in my heart, where it's like,
Mm.
Cade Klubnik's not that guy. Garrett Riley's not the dude to unlock this offense. They have no playmakers, and they go in against an App State team that is traditionally very tough. They've given problems to ACC teams for what feels like forever now. And Clemson goes and scores 35 points in the first quarter. We knew
Wow.
that Clemson's defense was going to be good. They slowed down Georgia for most of that game. But I think Cade Klubnik went 24 for 26, 378, and five touchdowns.
Mm.
Phil Maffa looked great. Their wide receiving core looked great. And I mean, it's a tough App State team. And obviously, we'll see as they play more ACC, type talent. But you got to remember, Georgia smoked Dan Lanning in his first year at Oregon, and Oregon turned that season around. So
Mm.
maybe Georgia's just gave them the fuel to kind of make a push. I mean, they are still undefeated in ACC play, so the championship's still well in reach. I think, them and Miami is going to be a good matchup if Cade and company still continues to grow and continues to improve each week.
Yeah, absolutely. They looked really solid. And so got ACC matchups coming up, and we'll see how they end up doing. In terms of our biggest fallers, there's a few teams as options here. I'll mention they're not my biggest faller, but Georgia Tech made their way in at number 24 after a couple good wins, and they lose to Syracuse, and they're not even in others receiving votes anymore. So they have dropped their way. They have dropped their way out of the public eye, which is sad. But I'm gonna make my biggest faller Michigan. Just with them coming off their national championship, still having the hope of how could this team look this season, and just a really poor showing against Texas at home. Their offense, as you mentioned before, looked really, really bad. Their quarterback play, they they're in a situation where you got two quarterbacks, you got no quarterback, and we're seeing them fall off a bit. Now, we're going to have to see if they can pick things up, if they can turn things around this year, if their whole program can come back in future years to be that dominant force that it has been. But I'm going to say they're my biggest faller after this week, a tough loss at home to Texas.
Yeah, I think for me, it'd just be easy just to say, oh, Notre Dame. But, we've given Notre Dame too much love. I can't talk about them that long.
Definitely.
So we're gonna switch it up. And I think obviously not in the standings. They didn't even lose this game. But I think Oregon,
Mm.
for me, biggest faller, as in they kind of fell in my perception from a national championship, contender. So I think they definitely have a shot at the playoffs, but they did not look good against Boise State. I mean, they had a couple special team plays that really saved them in that game against Boise State. Granted, Boise State's a really good team, and I think after watching the first 2 weeks, like if I could change my college football playoff predictions, I think they're the team coming out of the group of five or group of six, whatever
Mm.
you want to call the Pac-2. They have some real guys like Ashton Jeanty.
Yep.
My one of my coworkers, big Boise State guy. So I've been literally listening to him talk about Boise State all season long, and I thought that's all smoke, whatever. This kid's probably a Heisman candidate at the end of the year. But Dylan Gabriel just didn't push the ball downfield. Their offensive line didn't really look that good. Yeah, a lot of dump off passes. Their offense looked stagnant most of the game. And I mean, if you like, it's a good Boise State team, but if you're a national championship contender, you got to put teams like this away, especially at home. And when they go up against teams like Ohio State, I think that's kind of where they're going to get exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. Oregon, we've seen this is 2 weeks now where we've had this,
Yeah.
even with wins, questioning results for the
Yeah.
Ducks. So teams are just jumping them slowly, moving up, and they're heading into the Big Ten schedule. So we'll see. But we're gonna hop over to our week 3 picks now. At this point, looking back at last week, we both got Texas and Tennessee. I tried to be fun and went Colorado. I know it was a bad decision now at this point. Really interesting game that we haven't mentioned yet. Iowa State. Iowa, with how dominant they were in their first game, obviously winning 40-0, lost at the end by a
Yeah.
field goal, 20-19 against Iowa State, their in-state rival.
Yeah, yeah. We checked the geography on this one, guys. Don't worry.
Yes. So man, interesting result. And then we both got Oklahoma State. So you were 4-1 on the week. I was 3-2. Heading into this week with some interesting matchups. First, we'll start off with you, Nathaniel. We've got a couple ranked teams. Number 20, Arizona, going to play at number 14, Kansas State.
Yeah, I think last week I I definitely went the boring route. Looking at this, I went with every single favorite. And if you're a long listener to this show, that's not how I like to roll. So just keep that
Also,
in mind as
but it worked last week though, 4-1.
yeah, but was it fun? Not really. You always got to root for upsets, and
Yeah.
yeah, just keep that in mind as I sprinkle some of these picks in. But first game, Arizona at Kansas State. I think it's kind of concerning. Fafita and Tet McMillan, they looked amazing week 1 against New Mexico, which it's New Mexico, their defense couldn't really stop them. And then they go to NAU, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be probably the same. They only scored 22 points against
Mm.
NAU, which I'm pretty sure is an FCS school. I'm honestly not too sure. They could be D3 for all I know. But yeah, they didn't look good. But also Kansas State played a Tulane team, which didn't really have much expectations going into this year, and they struggled. They struggled a lot. They're on upset alert for most of the game until kind of pulled it out at the end with Tulane kind of stabbing themselves in the foot there. So it's kind of an interesting game between teams that quite aren't living up to expectations. But I think Kansas State definitely has a better defense. But I think in a shootout, which I believe this game's going to be, you have to give the game to the more experienced quarterback. And I think Fafita is more experienced and a better quarterback than Avery Johnson. And I think he has more weapons. So I think Arizona is going into Kansas State and taking that game.
Mm. Arizona with the win. Yeah, I think coming into this one, Avery Johnson at some point has got to have that breakout game. People
Yeah.
have been hyping him up coming off of playing as a freshman last year. He has taken over this team. Obviously, Will Howard had to transfer to Ohio
Yeah.
State because he wasn't going to have the starting job.
Yeah.
So at home, Kansas State, I'm going to look for them to take the win in this game against a ranked opponent and Avery Johnson to have a big game. And I think next week people will be talking about, oh, this guy, as people have been talking about him some before, but this guy is really going to be something coming in the future. So I got K-State. We're taking our next one up to Madison, Wisconsin. We've got number 4 Alabama rolling in to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. This one, Alabama is a 16-point favorite right off the rip. They should, quote unquote, not have a problem with this game. You never know when you're going up to Madison, Wisconsin, when the fans are going crazy up there. Alabama, obviously, we have them with a new coach. We have them settling into their system still at this point, and looking for it to be a fun matchup of red and white teams. But I'm still going to go with Alabama to win the game. I think that Wisconsin will cover. They'll keep it closer than people expect, but Alabama, just with their firepower on both sides of the ball, I'm gonna have them winning this game.
Yeah, I think just similar to what you're saying. I think Wisconsin, they're a team on the rise. I think Fickle's got them. I think that defense is looking good. It's just the offense you're just iffy about. And Bama had a slow start. Well, slow pretty much 3 quarters against USF, which is something you don't want to see. But I think going into Madison, they might start off the game a little slow, but you know that team has a fourth gear, fifth gear, just gassing it, and they'll be able to just blow teams out. So I think, and I don't think Wisconsin kind of has a killer instinct like that. So I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a similar game where it's kind of close, and you're like, oh, like, does Wisconsin have a chance? And then Jalen Milroe and that offense is just going to shut down the door, shut the lights out, whatever the saying is at the end, and take that game.
Yeah, and don't forget we've got Wisconsin heading to USC next week. So they've
Yeah.
got two tough matchups in a row. Might take two losses in a row. We'll talk about that next week for sure. But now we're heading to Missouri. We've got a couple ranked teams. We've got number 24 Boston College coming off of some good wins, coming off of Florida State, obviously when they beat them. Going to number 6 Missouri. It's still crazy for me how Missouri has risen over these past couple of years.
Yeah.
Really good team in the SEC. Missouri is 16 and a half point favorites here. Again, questions arising about what this game would look like. Boston College, we've already seen them play what was a ranked team at the time, FSU. Don't know what this will turn out as. What were your thoughts? You're up first on this one, Nathaniel.
So I think Boston College is a really fun team. I think they held up well in the trenches against Florida State. And then right after they go and blow out some school I don't really want to pronounce because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's like
Oh,
Duquesne,
Duquesne, yes.
Duquesne. Yeah, Duquesne. There we go. The S throws me off, man.
Yes.
But they have a lot of playmakers. It's a really fun team, like I said. And then Missouri, on the other hand, I think they haven't really shown anything yet, which I think it's interesting. They kind of start off in around the tens for that AP poll, and they rise up all the way to six, and they've
Hmm.
played pretty much no one. But they've also never let a team score this year, so there's that. I think Brady Cook and company is a very experienced team. And I think they're just going to be a little too much. That experience and that veteran leadership is going to be a little too much for Boston College, which is still a young team.
I've got to go the same direction there. Missouri is going to win this one at home. They're just like Tennessee, we talked about before, one of these SEC teams that's trying to stay in the mix. And I don't think they're going to falter against an ACC team coming in and playing them at home. We've got a rivalry game up next. Rivalry game number 9, Oregon, who we've talked about already, going to Corvallis to play against Oregon State. I'm picking first on this one, but I kind of wish I heard what you were gonna do first because we're gonna see what's going on. But Oregon, we've talked about them struggling. We talked about them struggling over this first couple weeks, and the question is, will it catch up to them? Will their, I guess you were saying especially not getting the ball downfield, really just looking lackluster against these lower opponents that we're expecting them to do really well against. Will that come back to bite them here against Oregon State? Oregon State had their first win of the season, easy. They came and played against San Diego State last week, shut us out. Our Aztecs, Nathaniel, our
Oh no.
Aztecs lost 21 to nothing against Oregon State here in against the Pac-2 team. And yeah, will they be able to stand strong? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say Oregon comes in and turns it on for the first time. They say, "Hey, I realize we haven't been playing up to par. We're gonna win this game. We're gonna walk home victorious." What do you think?
Oh man, I for a second there I thought you were going the other way. The way you kind of brought your voice up, I'm like, oh, is he gonna do it? But yeah, like you're saying, Oregon's coming off disappointing games, and Oregon State is undefeated. Like you said, they shut out our Aztecs.
Mm.
tear rolling down my face. But also, the Pac-2 is undefeated this year. They are currently 4-0, and the old Pac-12 is 21-2 so far this year. So should they
Whew.
have broken up the Pac-12, they probably would be the best conference out there. But sadly, they're gone.
Right, right.
And my heart really wants to go with Oregon State, but I feel like Oregon is going to find their rhythm offensively here. Never mind. I am going Oregon State. They're going to use Reser
Oh
Field to its
yeah.
full effect. They're going to take the upset. I have a feeling it's going to be a foggy day. Oregon's not going to know what's coming. Also, side note, I think Washington State's also beating Washington this week. Weird
Mm,
that these in-state, I'm 100% sure they're in-state
yes.
now.
I
These
agree.
rivalries are happening week 3, which kind of sucks. But
Yeah, it's weird.
the Pac-2 is going to be 6-0 after this week. You can put it down. You can book it.
Woo!
But
I
yeah, I'm
love the
going Oregon
picks.
State.
I love the picks. And with that, I'm interested seeing this last game. Last game, we've got number 16 LSU going to a South Carolina team coming off a good win against Kentucky. And we're going to talk about this one a bit. I watched the South Carolina Kentucky game this past week, and Kentucky looked awful.
Oh, so bad.
Bro- They got Brock Vandegrift from Georgia. He came out
Hmm.
there. Let me give you the stat line: 3 for
Oh
10,
god. Oh gosh.
30 yards, one interception. Oh, that was just awful. But along with that, the South Carolina defense really standing up strong against them. They've got a freshman quarterback in there, Lenoris Sellers, who really looks like he can be something. He is not experienced. He's a new player. He doesn't look super polished, but really playing well. They've got a transfer, Raheem Sanders, the running back from Arkansas previously, who is there taking over their running game. South Carolina being the unranked team, I think is going to be surprising, having some good wins this season in the SEC. And I'm going to take them to win. I'm going to take South Carolina to beat LSU at home. Williams-Brice Stadium is powerful. It's a great place to play. I've seen some good games there. So, yeah, we're going South Carolina to beat number 16 LSU.
Wow. Okay, okay. I think it's a bold pick. It's a bold pick. I think that's the boldest pick someone's made this entire segment.
I don't
But
know. Yeah.
yeah, I think
I think your Oregon State pick is more bold than that.
just trying to, it's not gonna look bold after next week. That's all I'm saying. But
That's fair.
yeah, I think, I do like South Carolina. Sellers, I think, can blossom into something big. I really want him to, because he just rocks those glasses and it's just the
Oh,
funniest thing ever.
oh yeah,
It's like the anti Jackson Dart in my mind.
sure.
But I mean, LSU, watching them live playing USC, I just see their physicality. And I think their offense, there was a little struggles here and there against Nicholls State, but I think they just have so many playmakers and they have a great quarterback behind the helm. And I think, yeah, I think South Carolina, that win against Kentucky, you can say South Carolina won that game, but in my mind, I think Kentucky just sucks so much they just lost that game. Looking at the stats, I think there was probably like 300 combined yards in that
Mm.
game, which ugly. And I don't think you can win an ugly game like that against a talented roster that LSU has. So I'm gonna take LSU, which I thought was gonna be, a common pick, but I guess not.
Well, we got to go different sometimes. And look at us. We got three
Oh
picks
man.
different this week, which I
Yeah.
love. I love. Last week we were just different because I went off the rails on Colorado. And so now we've got some different picks. Man, that makes it fun, fun, fun. So I'm looking forward to watching this week. Of course, we've got some matchups for our teams that are going to be fun to watch. We've got some good top 25 games. And, you know, last week showed us no matter what the games we're looking at, we're going to have some good, fun results to see
Yeah.
as well. So, another good week on the Swampy Coliseum podcast. Thanks for tuning in. And remember to follow us on Spotify, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at the Swampy Coliseum. We'll be posting live reactions to games. We'll be posting throughout the week our picks and different things going on. So make sure to follow all those. And we'll catch you for another episode next week. Talk to you later.
Yeah.